Alright, so I told you some games that I thought should have been on the NES Classic in the last video. Now I'm going to tell you some games that I think should be on a Super Nintendo Classic if they ever make one. The Super Nintendo is my all-time favorite console. It was the first home console I actually owned. I actually owned a Game Boy before that, but that was a handheld. The first home console I had was a Super Nintendo, and I loved it. And there are so many great games on the Super Nintendo, so it's hard to make a list of just 30 games for this video, so I'm just gonna name as many as I can. Some of these I actually have in another drawer with my Super Nintendo stuff, and some of them I don't have yet, and will fortunately get in the future at some point. So let's start with the obvious, Super Mario World. That has to be on a Super Nintendo Classic. And just for fun, have Super Mario All-Stars. Even though we had the Trilogy on the NES Classic, just have the All-Stars version on Super Nintendo Classic, because those are some really upgraded versions of those games. And since there's Super Mario World, what else? Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, one of my favorite games of all time. You also gotta have a Zelda, A Link to the Past, gotta have that. What about Pilot Wings? That was a launch title. How about the Donkey Kong Country trilogy? Unfortunately, I don't have the first one anymore. I will get it at some point. And if Square Enix is willing, we'll have these 3 games on it. Final Fantasy 2, Final Fantasy 3, and Chrono Trigger. Those are all the ones that I would want on it that are in here. Unfortunately, I don't have as many Super Nintendo games as I would like. So now time to read off a list again. Earthbound, definitely gotta have that. It would make it actually a lot easier to play than trying to get the cartridge. We already have it on the Virtual Console, but having it on like a Super Nintendo Classic thing would be awesome. Super Metroid, one of my all-time favorite games. Unfortunately, don't actually own it. I just played it on the Virtual Console, and it is one of my favorite Metroid games. So yeah, definitely Super Metroid. Super Mario Kart, the very first Mario Kart. Gotta have that. F-Zero and Star Fox, gotta have both of those on there. That was the starting point for both of those franchises. Super Castlevania 4, my favorite Castlevania game. Gotta have that. Contra 3, The Alien Wars. Extremely hard, but fun. I saw a lot of people saying to have the Turtles arcade game for the NES Classic, but if they made a Super Nintendo Classic, gotta have Turtles in Time. Another RPG that would be good on the system? Super Mario RPG. Also, since you have Kirby's Adventure on the NES Classic, have Kirby Superstar on the Super Nintendo Classic. What about Super Punch-Out? That's a very forgotten sequel to a Nintendo franchise, but it's good. Mega Man X. Having Mega Man X would be great. I listed a bunch here, so I'm just going to name them off. Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Harvest Moon, Secret of Mana, Final Fight, SimCity, ActRaiser, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Zombies Ate My Neighbors, Illusion of Gaia, Demon's Crest, Gradius 3, Earthworm Jim, Kirby's Dream Land 3, there's so many. There's so many great games on the Super Nintendo. So what would you put on a Super Nintendo Classic? Tell me down in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Well, by now we're getting a bit used to winter. We're like soldiers in the middle of a campaign, growing hardened to discomfort and better able to take